There we go.
Yep, it's working.
Yeah. I don't know who all these people are.
Rick, can you hear us?
Yes.
Excellent.
Great.
How are you?
Maybe. Welcome, everybody. I'm not sure who everybody is. There's some numbers without names or names I don't know. Hi, Dave.
Howdy.
Patty changed the name so we can figure out who she is easily.
Okay.
Hello, Dave.
Hey, Dan.
Hello, Gino. We can't see your face. Patty, we can't see you guys.
Hi, Danny.
Hello, Gina. Good to see you.
From Brooklyn.
Wow,
We
we're
all over the country call, which is great.
a little bit. You got a sister coming on? We'll give people a few minutes. Maybe we'll go to like 12:33 or so, and then we can get started.
Fair enough.
Who is 847-347-87 something? 84757. Tell us hello. We're getting on. Looks like a mother-in-law.
So
Well-
is Alana still driving the Mars rover?
Alana is still doing that.
That
And
sounds to me
enjoying it.
like the coolest job I've ever heard of.
I think it's great. And one time during COVID, she worked from our house, so we were literally driving the rover from Arizona.
I'm saying I know an actual rocket
So-
scientist.
Basically,
house-
what that means is from anywhere on Earth, you can
What?
drive the Mars rover.
And the difference in distance is immaterial, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
Margie, hi Dale, Ron, Patty,
Mark.
Lori, Sherry. Hey, Mark Bergson, nice to see you. What state of the union are you in, Mark Bergson?
You're muted, Mark, or we can't hear you. Hello,
It's not-
Glenn.
maybe your
There.
volume's down.
I'm still in the state of Wisconsin. Okay.
Got it.
Hey,
Nice
Lisa,
to
how are you?
Nice to see you. Really good to
Good to see you.
Dan, when I moved to Chicago a very long time ago, Mark was one of the first people to welcome me with a lot of warmth and insight, and continued
That's
to
sweet.
be.
I
Yeah,
still
I like
remember.
I liked when I
taking-
moved to Chicago and he was in Chicago, a little Skokie, but it was great.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a Judea Mitzvah when I moved to Chicago, and you continued
so-
to and supported my nifty efforts along the way too.
I still remember taking you and your dad to Rosenblum's at the time. Was it no, Hamakor? It was Hamakor at that time.
Amakor, yes. Oh, that's
Yeah.
right. When I first was looking for an apartment, gosh. Hey,
Right.
Glenn. Hey, Margie. Oh, wait, Margie's entering separately. Okay, I think we're gonna get started. I think some people may still be coming in, but we got 15 of about 20. So I don't actually know that I need to tell people who you are, Dan. I think everyone on this call you know.
I don't need to know.
Oh,
Some don't want to know.
right. I mean, maybe your father-in-law's
Well.
still wondering. I don't know, but I think you have a lot of history on this call. I'm grateful to everyone from different parts of Dan's life. Oh, there's another Heyman coming on. Every part of Dan's life and from parts of our NSCI and greater community. Dan, as you know, spent a month in Israel, which he's going to tell us about, and reached out to us and said, hey, if you want to talk about it. So I thought, what a really incredible opportunity for us to learn what you've learned about agriculture and what's going on in Israel and a whole heck of a lot of other things. Dan, remember very powerfully when, first talking with you and Rachel, a lot of years ago now. You're going on 20 years at NSCI, and with great awe and wonder and inspiration, watched your children grow up, and proud of each and every one of them. And I'm really grateful for you sharing your time with us today. Everyone knows that Dan's got finances on a vocational side and mountain climbing on an avocational side, though maybe they switch in terms of their priority. So I'm going to turn it over and say, tell us a little bit about your trip. And your experience was really more than a trip, your journey, and a little bit of what you did, and we'll go from there.
It's a great experience, exceeded all expectations. When the war started on the 7th, I wanted to go there on the 8th, and Rachel, my wife, if you guys don't know me, kind of put the brakes on that and said, you don't just go over, you're an old guy, you could be a burden. That's all they need is another American who's taken hostage. You can go over there when you have a plan. And I actually think it was a great idea now looking back, although it delayed when I got to go over there. But I found somebody through a website in Israel, which specialized in getting volunteers in Jerusalem, to pack sandwiches and stuff like that. And I asked them if they knew of any longer term and for people coming from abroad to do volunteering work. And through that, I found Israel Food Rescue. And that was started as a grassroots movement, started right after the war started, by a military rabbi in Maryland. And he just started setting up, making arrangements to try and get people over to Israel, make arrangements with farms, make arrangements for lodging and things like that, if he could get people over. So I signed up with them and said I'd go there for about a month. And the thought was, if it was a fair program only, I'd do it for 3 weeks and then spend a week visiting family. But I worked the whole month that I was there, but also got to mix that in with family, with friends, and so on. And it was a great experience. So if you don't know it, Israel is 100% food efficient. In fact, they're a net exporter. And because of the war and such labor shortages that would then occur, food was rotting on the vines, and food was not getting to the grocery stores. And all of a sudden, what had taken so many years to prepare almost seemed endangered. And so the thought was, go there, do a little bit of farming. Hopefully I'm not that bad at farming, and get more food on the table for Israelis. While I was there on the first day, which was interesting, on my first farm, which was Persimmons, the farm's largest client or largest customer was Costco Canada. And Costco was visiting that day and being told, during the war, we're not going to be exporting to you. You'll have to come up with other sources. The persimmons are needed for Israel. And so it was farms rejiggering to say, what are they going to do? How are they going to be able to supply food for the country? With, as I said, incredible labor shortages. Because, for example, the Thais, who are there in big numbers and were really big parts of most of the farms that I was on. The farm I was on normally would have 125 Thais working there. And it was down to 20 because people had been killed, people had been taken hostage, and most had just left after the war started. So Israeli government currently in negotiations with countries like Sri Lanka and so on to bring over more people. But in the interim, going down from a workforce of 125 to 20, all of a sudden you can't be picking your fruit, packing your fruit, getting it to market, getting it to the States and so on. So that's kind of what I was thrown into. And it was great, an amazing team that I worked with. Our group was very diverse, and other volunteer groups would come over and they'd be set up for, college kids or elderly individuals. Our group, because it was ad hoc and people just finding it and then coming on over, ranged in age from 18 to 83. From the United States, from Canada, from Europe. I would say about 60 to 70% male over female. So it's really varied, Jewish and Christian. And so it was a great group, just lovely people. We lived together. We were in a dorm hotel in Jerusalem, and we would be picked up every day at 6 a.m. To then go out to the farm. And so we would eat together when I would, because very often I was not coming back after the day at the farm. Instead, I might go to see family and come back late at night. And then the next day go for farming. So that's kind of what I was doing. Spent a lot of time with family. Family that, you know, some cousins who were serving, who were in Gaza, who I would see, you know, when they would get out for a day or two, and then the next morning they'd be going back. Relatives who were retired military, of course, and was seeing a lot of things, and also a lot of experiences just within Israel traveling around, especially when I break away from the farming group, because I'd be on buses. And one of the definite feelings you had was that things were different also, in the sense that just so much of a higher percentage of people on your buses were armed. You know, soldiers just going back and forth, or soldiers who are off, but they have to be bringing their weapons with them. And so instead of seeing it, you know, maybe 5 or 10%, you're seeing 30 to 40% of the people with machine guns and so on. Really weird to be sitting on a train and somebody walks by and the barrel of their machine gun is rubbing against your leg. And I'm like, whoa. But people were good. People are traumatized. I think they're healing slowly. It's not a normal feel when you're in cities like Jerusalem, where there are virtually no tourists there, and even the people are not really out on the streets, and people aren't smiling. So one of the ways they deal with trauma is that they're, you know, trying to volunteer. And very often on my farm, for example, there'd just be a group of individuals, I'd say from the ages of 50s and 60s, Israelis, who would come and spend the afternoon packing. So those are the types of things they do. Or somebody would just put out a note, I'm making sandwiches today. Anybody want to come over and help with making sandwiches or delivering them? And so people are trying to get involved to get over the trauma. One of the things I would see, which I didn't like seeing, was Israelis who were just glued to the television because they have news 24/7. And it can be an incredible downer, and incredibly upsetting, and you just get hypnotized by it. So that was one of the things that was going on. Felt reasonably safe there. You know, couple sirens. Sirens are very specific now. So for example, when missiles would be coming into Ashkelon, we could watch it from Ashdod, which is where the farms were, most of the farms we were working at. And we wouldn't be getting the sirens. We wouldn't have to try and find cover. Cover was a problem on the farms because they had like tubes, construction type tubes, which you could run into, but you couldn't get there because the farm was, you know, the 30-second warning. Different places have a different amount of time from when they hear the sirens from when the missiles will actually hit. And so what we would normally do, since we couldn't get out of the greenhouses in fast enough time, we just lay down within the greenhouse and cover your head. But in general, I felt incredibly safe there. And I know you can see things on TV where it looks really dangerous and it is a war zone, but I felt very comfortable, with the exceptions of a few times with sirens and going into safe rooms and or laying down in the fields and so on. So that was kind of a little bit of the experiences. Lisa,
What else did you pick besides persimmons?
so persimmons was my #1 crop. Then I went to a much larger farm with greenhouses. That was cucumbers, tomatoes, and kohlrabi. And then my last stop was at a farm where it was cauliflower. So I learned a lot about vegetables. I mean, I had done a little bit of gardening as a kid. And this was incredibly efficient. And it was even interesting talking to some of the Africans who were farming the cucumbers with us. And I said, do you farm cucumbers in Tanzania or in Rwanda, in different places where they were coming from, Ghana? And they said, yeah, but we don't do it like this. And here you were just farming these beautiful, beautiful cucumbers, and everything was graded because the selling price varies, and they're trying to create those beautiful cucumbers, which are selling in multiples. Everything probably tastes the same, but especially for export purposes and things like that, they really want to make the high quality products. And so with persimmons, Costco had a grade of its own. And they said, Costco is really tough on us from a standpoint of quality, but they also pay very well and are a great customer. So it was interesting just learning about this because, I didn't know from Adam, and I didn't really know the process of how it gets from picking into packaging, how much can go in there. And it was really pretty cool.
Are you sick of eating those particular products?
No, I liked it. And in fact, we would eat them in the middle of the fields. You're getting a lot more for your gut health when they're just dirty and in the middle of the fields. And then I would also bring fresh produce to family members when I go visit, and they were thrilled. They thought it was beautiful. And I had never had kohlrabi before. And the day before I started picking kohlrabi, I was with a cousin, and the cousin said, here, you can try it if you'd like. And it was good. So
You mentioned when you and I spoke last week that you were also in Israel during the Gulf War. So how did you were doing different things, and how do you compare, if you can, contrast the mood, the experience? Is obviously a very different kind of war, but in terms of how you encountered Israelis.
So the Gulf War, when I saw the Scuds coming into Israel, I figured there's something I can do. Let me go over there and help. And the Gulf War was, from an Israeli perspective, was more of an inconvenience. Good news is a lot of people were not being killed. And the name of the game was just to get out of Tel Aviv and Haifa, which were the cities that were being hit by Scuds. And the whole thing was, can Israel keep the country together without retaliating and screwing up the coalition? So although it was a war that was occurring, it was kind of an inconvenience on the Israeli side. And we're going to be dealing with this damage, but we'll have to show self-control so the coalition can continue to do what they're supposed to do in Iraq. So different feel, a lot safer. A lot of people just, almost having a good time with it. Everybody was decorating their face mask boxes and just going with the flow. Here was, people were very upset. Everybody's been touched by this war as far as hostages, as far as deaths and so on. So everybody is involved in it, having kids in Gaza right now or spouses in Gaza. So very different feel because it was so encompassing on the whole country.
What's your, I won't say most profound, but like what's your profound or otherwise insight from when you left? Like, what's your?
I think they're doing amazing things. I think it's the most ethical army in the world. And I think they need time and they need weapons to be able to continue and to finish this job. The interesting thing that talking to soldiers is they say it doesn't matter what Bibi says, it doesn't matter what Biden says. We're going to finish the job in Gaza and then we're going to Lebanon. Because everybody views, how can we continue living here when we're under this kind of threat where these people say, we want to kill all of you, and they're serious about it and they continue to try. So lovely to see the resilience, because these people believe that they're doing the right thing and they're trying to live their lives and protect their families.
If you heard my sigh, it was because as you said that, I was thinking of my friend's sons who are fighting right now, and,
Yeah.
and all the other sons. Annette, I'm going to come back. And one more, I want to ask Dan one other question, and then we'll open for questions. What's your message to us in terms of we're here on the ground? I mean, my message to all of you is go, and I'm taking a trip March 4th. But in addition to that, like, what's your message to us here in the United States?
The trips are incredibly important. Everything we do is important, and what we should all try and do is do something. Whether it's sending notes to our senators and representatives, whether it's attending rallies, whether it's writing letters to universities to say this has got to stop. or whether it's going over, it's sending money, whatever you can do, and it's really important. What I found, and as I said, the trip exceeded expectations, and the way it really did was, I thought, as best I can, even though I know we're worse than the Thai laborers and we're not as fast as the Palestinian laborers and so on. I said, maybe I can help a little. And I think we did. The first farmer we were with, he said, "You're not helping me, you're saving me." And so in that sense, it was like really important we were there. But what exceeded the expectations was I found out the whole farming was really secondary, because what was important was Israelis knowing that they're not alone. And they were just so grateful that anybody would come. So that was like, yeah, just shocking who was appreciative and how appreciative they were.
Right. Thank you. I'm going to turn to questions. Dale, I see your questions. Dan answered where the farm is located. Dan, there's another question about what does it mean to get the job done, but as Dan is wise and smart as he is, he's not a military strategist in terms of how to manage to get the hostages. So I'm actually not going to ask that question, if you'll excuse me on it. And I have a question from Annette. Oh, wait, maybe you send it to Dan directly. Okay. He's having trouble getting online. Questions, other questions?
What I can tell you is where the farms were.
Yeah.
And again, this Rabbi Brown set it up that most of the moshavs were just outside of Ashdod. He did nothing in Judea and Samaria. And other volunteers were going there, like the farmers from Montana, the cowboys. And by the way, Israelis love the cowboys. They would watch their YouTube videos and just be so thrilled about these non-Jews who came over and, are helping us out and then getting on television to tell people about it. So, the farms were just outside of Ashdod.
So distance-wise, when you were staying where again? You were in?
We were
You're in
in
Tel-
Jerusalem.
You're in Jerusalem.
Helpful, because a lot of the people were excited about being able to daven at the wall and, having some restaurants as well. So I would say it would take us about an hour and 15 minutes to get there and get home afterwards.
Other questions? You can unmute and ask them too. Would you go back?
In a minute. And then asked me if I'd keep her company if she went in March or April, and the answer is yes. Hopefully Rachel will go along with that. What Rachel suggested, just because we have a wedding, my nephew and that son in June, and her suggestion was either go early and be able to volunteer for a couple weeks before, or stay later, which I think is definitely viable. So again, it's a fluid situation, and so you see how things are going, but I definitely go back, because again, initially you get there and it's like, this is a war zone, and am I being crazy being here? And I felt really good about being there, and I think it was important.
Thank you. Dale, I see your comment. People say if we go, we're using resources that could go to Israelis. You can take that argument. I'm no expert on it. There are also many businesses that are closing and can benefit. So I think it goes both ways, but I'll let Dan speak to that.
A lot of people were encouraging me, especially from the States, you better be buying nice presents for your family and all that, because you're going to help the economy. And stores were thrilled to have us there. Everybody's like, "Oh, can I give you some things for free?" It's like, no, I'm trying to help you and be buying things. I didn't feel like I was taking a plane seat from somebody who was trying to get back for reserve duty. I think people are getting back. Flights are really full. Now the foreign airlines are starting to fly in again. Were we eating food? Yeah, hopefully we were making more than that. Our group started off, when I first got there, it was about 20. By the time I left, we were at 61 and growing. So I like that fact. Early on, one day I did find out how many persimmons we picked, and it wasn't the whole group because at the time we were at two different farms. I always would stay at the persimmons. They were great. I liked working there. And we picked 4.4 tons of persimmons in one day. So if you'd eat that,
Holy, wow.
if you'd eat that much, you'd get really sick. So we weren't eating as much as we were picking. So hopefully there was a net gain, and it wasn't as, I mean, the cauliflowers, I enjoyed what we did for our first day there, and that would be towards the end of my trip. But there was a huge field, and this guy had several fields, but this one had not been touched since the war started. And everything was grown over there, and most of it was rotted. And what he was having us do was rip out his irrigation system so he could replant. And later on, what individuals did was they helped on the replanting and the idea that hopefully next time things could be picked. And so, you know, were we using resources? Yes. Hopefully we were producing more. And I think, again, from the morale standpoint, hopefully we were being helpful, that they didn't feel alone.
Gina asks, are Israelis getting the same news content about the deaths and destruction in Gaza that we are getting here in the US? I've heard otherwise, and it's hard to know what to believe.
Well, since they get Fox and they get CNN, I'd say they have access to it. I think they're watching more of the Israeli stations, which are 24/7.
As we can, I mean, we can go on Ynet and look at Israeli news as well.
ILTV and so on. So yeah, I think they're saying the same thing. I think they may have different attitudes, which are we're doing everything we can not to have civilian casualties, and Hamas is doing everything they can to have civilian casualties. Hamas spent an incredible amount of money to build these tunnels. Notice that they didn't build bomb shelters, and that they won't let Palestinians into the tunnels. And so there's not a lot of Rahmanis. It's oh, this is terrible. We don't like to see this happening, but we've got to clear these guys out, because otherwise they're going to do this again and again and again. So do they see the films? Yeah. Do they like it? No. They understand it's something that needs to get done for their security and survival.
Thanks. Annette asks, please explain how this, I guess, your work affects, or this, maybe it's the not picked fruit, how this affects crops this year and in the future. And Gina, thanks you.
Well, it's really important to keep up crops, to keep farming, and to knowing that it's a viable business. And again, farmers very often can be in debt. And if they can't get things to market, they make nothing. And I think it's really important when you're food independent to be able to continue to produce and not to take half of your fields and stop using them for production and having other means to get to be importing and to lose your exporting contacts for the future if you're able to export, if the country can afford that. So I think near term, it's important to be involved and not to neglect that. And that's just one sector. I mean, we went to the Ministry of Agriculture one day, which I was a little upset about because they met us in the middle of the day and we didn't get to work at all. But the organization said it was really important for us to meet with them. And it was an incredibly interesting time with them. And they said that they were down 40,000 laborers. And this is just in the agricultural sector. So it's really important to continue farming on existing farms. It's not expanding, it's just trying to maintain what you have. And so, yeah, I think it's really important for the future as well.
Patty asks, I'm getting messages from friends that groups need socks, boots, etc. that I'm donating to. Have you any thoughts on this issue?
Yeah, there's a great need. And initially, most people, their comment was the bad government, they call up all these reservists and they don't have supplies for them. These guys are cold. They need warm weather clothing and all that. They need sleeping bags. They need tents. And what's happened is it's become really grassroots. And a cousin of mine, and that's what I did my first Shabbat when I was there. he every week is buying things that he finds out from his brigade, which he was previously a brigade commander. He gets calls from them what they need, and instead of complaining about the government, he buys things and drives it on down there. It's kind of like a black swan event. You don't expect to have to call up 360,000 reservists. And, every year when you have peace or some semblance of peace, you keep cutting back on the supplies that you have ready and available to them. And so then when 360,000 people come down, there's not enough food in the storage areas. There's not enough things for them. And so, a lot of it's grassroots, people either trying to get funding to them, people trying to just get supplies. And, it was funny because we had a car that was full, and on our way down, we stop at a gas station, which I guess in Israel, in gas stations, you can buy camping supplies. And so we bought tents.
Buy everything there.
Yeah, we bought tents and
Right.
sleeping bags and continued that when we brought it down to the battalion staging area. And, these guys were incredibly gracious, really appreciative. And then the cousin took me around to see a lot of other things, which were incredibly disturbing, a little shocking. But, it's life there, and these things aren't that far away. Yo, Liz, terrific. I like that.
I don't understand your next question. Major mobilization, is it more under control now? I'm not exactly sure what that, maybe you understand it.
I can say what I think it is. Even though they've sent some reservists home, I don't think that means that they're stopping or even slowing down the war. I think they're trying to say, how long is this going to take? Where do we need resources, and how can we use them efficiently? And I think, October 7th hits, and a lot of reservists were even coming up before they were called to see what they can do, how they can help, and driving down to Gaza. And so now I think it's better understanding of what's happening and how to deal with it, and also preserve resources. What do you really need up north? How soon are things going to start up or get more serious up north? And so I think it's more, how do we do this from the long term?
Dale, I'm going to ask your question, but with the caveat that lots of people have their own thoughts about what are the best organizations. So Dan, you can take this question or not. I know, Dale, you mean it with big heart. I'm hesitant to be someone endorsing one organization over another, but the question is best organizations to donate to. Dale's question is JNF, JUF, Magen David Adom. I mean, they're doing different things, obviously. But,
find out what they're going to do with it. Find out their percentage of administrative costs. I liked Israel Food Rescue. Initially, it was totally grassroots with no employees. I guess now when they're larger, they're starting to actually get employees. And what are they really going to do, and what's the need? And then try and look at it yourself from a standpoint of, I know what's going on in Israel. Is that really the need? So these organizations are great. They do a lot. Some of them also look at this as an opportunity to do more and more fundraising opportunities for domestic administrative costs. But I think you just got to look at these different charities. Everybody's got the right idea and hoping to help.
I'm just curious, with Israel Food Rescue, did you overlap at all with Leket? Leket, for those of you who don't know, has their own fields, and they, I think, now are helping farmers who in their private fields, and they collect food from all sorts of things all over. It's kind of like America's Second Harvest, sort of.
Yeah, Leket's a really good organization. And initially, Israel Food Rescue was tied to Leket, and Leket was helping make contacts. And by the time we got there, we were really doing it on our own. So I never interacted with the other organization. I think Rabbi Brown did. And then Leket just continued to go in their direction. But yeah, it's a really high quality organization.
I'm going to give Rick the last question. Rick asks, did you have a chance to go to any of the kibbutzim or towns attacked on October 7th? And did you have lectures, cultural programs, social events with the people you were volunteering with?
when I went with my one cousin and we went to the Eretz crossing over into Gaza and really toured the crossing a lot. I mean, we were right next to Beery. I didn't go in there. I mean, you saw the kibbutz, it was pretty empty at the time. Now a few people are starting to come back. But we instead were talking to the soldiers, and then went into Gaza for a short time, which was something that most of the people in my group didn't get to do. Other people did make arrangements to go to see the kibbutzim. And it was interesting because their comment was similar to my comment from seeing the crossing, that you'll have nightmares for the rest of your life. A lot of these things haven't been cleaned up. I mean, there isn't laborers, or it's more, we've got to take care of the people who have come out of there and come up north. So yeah, they're pretty bad situations.
Like so much in Jewish history, that as difficult it is for us to see, bearing witness is crucial, and it's a challenge. You have any last words, Dan?
Again, everything people are doing back here, I think it's really appreciated and really, really important. So thank you.
Thank you.
We
And,
thank you. We thank you for what you did for all of us.
Yeah, and Lisa's having a trip, which it's a shorter period of time, which hopefully makes it easier for people to go. And these short trips are also really meaningful because, again, Israelis are amazed to see Americans, and hopefully it becomes more of a regular thing. And now with the airlines flying there and all that, I mean, the airport was really surreal when you get there, because it was so empty and you see nothing but El Al planes. I mean, it's normally the rainbow of all the different planes, and everybody else got their planes out of there, not knowing when they'd be coming back.
just so you all know, the NSCI trip is not limited to NSCI. It's open to others. We'll have, at this moment, the itinerary obviously is going to shift with needs, but the itinerary as it stands has 4 different volunteer opportunities. At least one will be picking, depending on the needs. One will be making Shabbat dinner, and there are 2 others. There'll be some learning and bearing witness, and Shabbat at a small Reform synagogue outside of Tel Aviv that we NSCI have a connection to the rabbi who's been here by us, and the opportunity to take in a little bit of culture and also eat some good meals, which, while I wrestled with when we were creating the itinerary, I learned that a lot of these businesses are going under. And so it's an opportunity to help put some in the economy, put some money back in the economy. But definite opportunities to roll up our sleeves and help, again, in a smaller way than Dan was able to do, but not everyone has the month to go. So Dan, I'm really grateful for you for you offered this, and I'm really grateful that you shared it. I'm sure that I don't know everyone on this call. I think you do, but I'm great, but I'm great. I'm sure I speak for all of us in saying thank you. For those of you who know him, you can ask your questions directly, and for those of you who don't, I'm happy to pass on other questions if you have them. There are thanks in the chat, and I think there's another question or two that people can maybe ask directly. Just I build this in terms of lunchtime for people for about a half hour, so I want to be respectful of that. But thank you all, and those of you who are in our NSCI ranks, if you're not, you can still get our emails. We're doing lots of Israel learning, and including a week from Friday night, we have Dr. Andrew Rayfeld, who's the president of the Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion, who's a poli-sci professor at WashU and now the president of HUC, and he's going to speak at Jewish ethics during wartime, and he's been back and forth on numerous occasions. So you can come to services. If you want to come to the Shabbat dinner, please sign up in advance. We'd love to see you. Lots of good things. Thank you all. Danny, thanks. Tell Rachel it was great to see her for a sec, and have a good day. You all.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Really appreciative of your time and insights.